So it'd be a bit of a shame to have a kick animation and not do anything cool with it, so in this video we'll go ahead and address that. So we want to go ahead and open up Window, Quixel Bridge, My MetaHumans, and then go ahead and create another MetaHuman if you need to refresh on that. See videos 1 and 2 of this series. So I've already created a couple of others. I'm just going to go ahead and download it. Once that's done, go ahead and add it to the project. We're finished with Quixel Bridge, and if we go to our MetaHumans folder, open up that new MetaHuman, we'll go to the blueprint. We'll head over to the viewport. As usual, you'll want to go to the LOD sync component and set the forced LOD to 0 or 1. And what I'm going to do is, so we'll click on the blueprint here and say add component skeletal mesh. Select the body and drag that within the skeletal mesh. So the body and all of its children should be within the mesh. We can drag the skeletal mesh onto the root. And then we can assign a mesh to the skeletal mesh. So if we go select this, open up the content drawer, go to characters, mannequins, meshes, SKM mani simple, and then back over here we can click this arrow with that mesh. We're not going to do too much there. Let's just go ahead and delete this root. It looks like I didn't delete that. Select your mesh and set the visibility to false. Let's compile and save that, and we'll have to fix the standard error here where we have to plug in the body. So we'll drag in our body and plug that into the target and compile and save. Then let's go to the event graph, and we'll create a new event that will get fired when this character actually gets kicked. So we'll just say custom event, and we can call that got kicked. So as soon as this character gets kicked, we want to enable physics for the skeletal mesh. Set simulate physics true, plug that in, and then we want to add an impulse to the skeletal mesh. By adding this impulse, we are essentially adding a single burst of force to the mesh as a result of the kick, and then we want the physics engine to process that force. So let's go ahead and calculate the value for the impulse. So what we'll need to do is add an input to this one. And we can call that kick location, and that'll be of type vector. And we can use that to determine exactly where the kick happened and apply force accordingly. So if we drag off the kick location and say multiply, right click on this pin and convert to float single precision. And this is where we will apply the force, or define what force is applied in the X and Y directions. So essentially the horizontal directions. And we want to set this to a pretty high starting value. I'll just say 25,000, drag off here and say break vector. And then we'll just drag from the X and say make vector net quantize. For the moment, just make note that this has to do with state replication in a multiplayer game. We can plug the Y value into that as well. And then in this field is where we'll define how much force is applied in the Z direction, how much vertical force will apply. I'll just start with 30,000. And this should give us all the data we need to define our impulse, so we can plug the return value into the impulse. And then we'll just let physics happen for, so delay 10 seconds. So So we'll watch the result of our kick for 10 seconds, and then we can get rid of the kicked character. So destroy actor, and that will be applied to self. I think that should be all we need to do for this blueprint, so we'll compile and save that. When the character reaches this position, so his foot has essentially reached the peak or the top of the animation, and it's just about to come back down. So when it reaches that point, we want to create a collision sphere where we'd expect the kick to actually have made contact with the other MetaHuman. If this collides with the other character, we'll go ahead and consider that as got kicked, and we'll apply the physics. So go to the content directory, create a new folder, call it blueprints. In the blueprints folder, we can right click, create a new blueprint class, actor, and this one can be called kick hit actor. So we'll open that one up, and we'll go to the viewport. We just want to add a sphere collision. We can drag that onto the root, and then we just want to add an arrow. This sphere is probably way too large, so if we select that, make sure this padlock is selected, and we'll set the scale to 0.4. And this arrow we will use when we apply the kick force. We'll use this to tell us what direction the force will be applied in. So we don't need this object to be in the game for very long. It just needs to be in to check if there was a collision. If there wasn't, doesn't need to do anything. If there was, it needs to initiate the physics for the kick. And then once it's done that, it's no longer needed. So if we go to the event graph, we can create a delay here for 1 second, and then destroy. So it'll just go ahead and destroy itself. It'll only need less than 1 second to do what it needs to do. We'll come back to this shortly to add in some collision functionality, but if we just compile and save it for the moment, head over to our character blueprint that we are actually playing as. So MetaHumans, in my case it's Hudson, and I'll open up the duplicated blueprint that we created. We'll go to viewport,